is Claudia McNeely, and welcome to A Time to Heal. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight as we learn the history of many of the holidays that are celebrated at this time of year. I want to welcome my son Christopher to the show. I mention him often on the show, and tonight you have a chance to get to know him a bit better. Hi,
Hello.
Christopher. Welcome
Hello.
to the show. So, we're going to talk about the different holidays that are celebrated this time of year. So what are some of the holidays that we celebrate this time of year?
Well, there are a lot of holidays celebrated all over the world this time of year. There is, of course, the winter solstice, which happened about a couple of days ago, actually. And then there's Yule, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and then, of course, the one everyone knows about, Christmas.
Okay. Well, which one is the oldest?
The oldest is the winter solstice. The winter solstice has been celebrated for many a century, way before the time of Jesus' birth. The winter solstice occurs at the instant when the sun's position in the sky is at its greatest angular distance on the other side of the equatorial plane as the observer is. Depending on the shift of the calendar, the event of the winter solstice can occur between December 20th and 23rd each year in the northern hemisphere, and between June 20th and 23rd in the southern. The winter solstice is known as the shortest day or the longest night of the year, not to be confused with the darkest day or nights, which happens pretty commonly. The interpretation of the event has varied from culture to culture, but most cultures have held a recognition of rebirth involving holidays, festivals, gatherings, rituals, or other celebrations around that time. Some astronomical events happening during the ancient times allowed for the scheduling of mating, sowing of crops, and metering of the winter reserves between harvests. And they show how various cultural mythologies and traditions have arisen. On the night of winter solstice, as seen from the northern sky, the three stars in Orion's belt align with the brightest star in the eastern sky called Sirius to show where the sun will rise in the morning after the winter solstice. Until this time, the sun has exhibited since the summer solstice a decreasing arc along the southern sky. Have you ever noticed that? That the sun just tends to go off to the side and comes back during the winter?
Yeah.
But on the winter solstice, the sun ceases to decline in the sky, and the light of daylight reaches its minimum for 3 days. I just thought it was 1 day at first. And when that happens, the sun begins to ascend and the days start to grow longer, which makes the interpretation by a lot of cultures as a sun reborn and return to light. This return to light is again celebrated at the vernal equinox, when the length of day equals that of the night. A lot of people symbolize the winter solstice in winter with death and rebirth, and it's become a great time of year for many holidays. The solstice itself has been a special moment of the annual cycle since Neolithic times. It's attested by physical remains in the layouts of late Neolithic and Bronze Age archaeological sites. Did you know that Stonehenge was one of the sites that it's talking about?
Really?
Yeah, the Stonehenge in Great Britain and the Brú la Borin, which means New Grange, is in Ireland. The primary axes of both of these monuments seem to have been carefully aligned on the side frames with the winter solstice sunrise in New Grange and the winter solstice sunset in Stonehenge. It's pretty neat, huh?
Yeah, it is.
The winter solstice may have been immensely important because communities were not assured to live throughout the winter because they were poor and they didn't have a whole lot of money way back when. And starvation was very common in the winter between January and April, also known as the famine months. Because of the temperature changes, the Midwinter Festival was the least feast celebration before deep winter began. Most cattle were slaughtered so that they would be able to guarantee being fed during the winter. It was nearly the only time of year when a fresh supply of meat was available. And drinkers are going to love this. The majority of wine and beer made during the year was finally fermented and ready for drinking at this time, so that made a lot of people happy. And the concentration of the observances were not only on the day commencing that midnight or dawn of the winter solstice, but the beginning of the pre-Romanized day, which falls on the previous eve.
Wow. So this is in the northern hemisphere, right?
Yes.
What happens in the southern hemisphere?
Well, the southern hemisphere don't have anything to celebrate right now except for Christmas and all that.
Okay.
And down in the southern hemisphere, they celebrate their winter solstice in June, on June 20th or 23rd in the southern hemisphere.
Okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so is that everything you've got on the winter solstice?
Well, that is pretty much everything that I have on the papers.
Okay. Winter solstice was like a pagan holiday, wasn't it?
Originally, yes, it was.
Yeah. People throughout time would worship the seasons and the sun and the moon and all of those things, and that was just a normal part of life back then. And when you mention pagan, people get really upset and think that's witchcraft, but it really isn't.
No, it's not.
Paganism is just a earth-based religion, and
mm-hmm.
it encompasses the Druids, the Celtics, the Native Americans, the Australian Aborigines, as well as the Wiccans and the witches of now. But it's not just witchcraft.
Of course.
People think it is. So people get really upset when you start talking about paganism, but it's just an earth-based religion. It's just where they honored the seasons and the earth and all of the changes that it made.
Yep. And they actually had some gods and deities that they would pray to. I failed to get the names of these deities, but there were quite a few of them associated with the winter solstice.
Yeah, I think Ra was one of them, the sun god.
Yeah, Egypt was one of the big winter solstice places.
Yeah. So the solstice was basically a winter celebration when they honored the earth and prayed for winter to be over so that they could have a new harvest the next year, right? That's basically what it was?
That's basically what it was. And before the winter solstice came, early December, they would have a feast called the Last Feast, which they would bring a whole lot of food. And they thought that if they ate a whole lot of food, that would last them throughout most of the winter so they wouldn't have to starve.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was a big thing back then, being able to have food to make it through the winter. That was a really big thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And to be able to stay warm through the winter, too, was another big thing.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the reasons they wouldn't slaughter their cattle for the fur.
Oh, okay. So did they just slaughter one, or did they slaughter more than one, or...
Well, they usually slaughter as many as they probably. Actually, I think they slaughtered most of them for a couple of reasons. One, for the fur to keep them warm. The second, for the meat, so they'd have a fresh supply of meat for the winter, and also so they wouldn't have to feed them.
Oh, that's a good reason.
Yeah, very good reason.
It has been a very quiet holiday this year.
Yeah, it has. Usually cars are backed up for miles near our hometown, but there's barely any traffic.
Right, the malls.
It's hard to believe it's Christmas Eve.
The malls are almost empty. The stores don't have people in them. It's been a really interesting year. Okay, what's the next holiday we have?
The next holiday is something that comes right with the winter solstice, and that's Yule. Not many people know about Yule nowadays. Most people think about Yule as Christmassy, but it's not. It actually happens a couple of days before Christmas. And the term Yule is actually from an Old Norse word, Yule, which means wheel. Yule is celebrated when the wheel of the year is at its lowest point and ready to rise again. It's a winter festival associated with the winter solstice, celebrated in Northern Europe since ancient times. Back when Christianity was first starting out, the Christians set the Christmas day on Yule. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
And that's one of the reasons why Yule and Christmas are often found side by side in stories and carols. In Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, the term Yule is a common way to refer to the celebration, including among the Christians. In these countries, the highlight of the Yule celebration is the Yule Eve or Christmas Eve on December 24th, which is when the children get their Yule or Christmas presents by a character resembling Father Christmas. In Denmark, he's called Julemanden. In Norway, he's called Julenissen. And in Sweden, he's called Jultomten. Many of the symbols and motifs associated with the modern holiday of Christmas are actually derived from the traditional pagan Northern European Yule celebrations. I thought that was pretty neat. The burning of the Yule log, classic. Decorating trees.
Okay,
eating.
What's a log?
A Yule log is actually a log made of ash, and it was considered the highlight of the Yule season and the festival. In accordance to the tradition, the log must either have been harvested from the householder's land or given as a gift. You could not have bought it. You just couldn't have.
Right.
And the log is traditionally made out of ash, and when it's dragged into the house and placed in the fireplace, it was decorated in seasonal greenery and doused with cinder or ale, and also dusted with flour before set ablaze. And they'd use a piece of pardon?
Do you know why they did that?
I was unable to find why they did it. That was a good question I asked, but I wasn't able to find why.
Okay, the reason they did that, the ale on it and the flour had to do with protecting the crops and bringing them food for the next year. Wow. Yeah, that was the purpose for that.
Well, that's pretty neat. Yeah. And for the last year's Yule, they would save a piece of the log and set fire to the new log with a small piece of the old log, which was held onto for just that one purpose. And the log would burn throughout the night and then smolder for 12 days before being put out in a good celebration.
So what was the purpose of burning the log?
The purpose of burning the log was, one, to celebrate and, like you said, pray for protection.
Yeah, it was protection.
And it also, a big log like the Yule log would keep the house nice and warm for a couple of weeks before they put it out.
Wow.
Mhm.
What else about Yule?
Well, when the Christianization of German peoples began, missionaries found it convenient to provide a Christian reinterpretation of popular pagan holidays such as Yule, and allow the celebrations themselves to go on unlargely changed versus trying to confront and suppress them.
But why did they use a tree in Yule? Not in Christmas, but in Yule. Did you
Pardon?
Did you find that information?
I was not able to.
Okay, the purpose of the Christmas tree was they would put bells and things on the tree so that if there was any evil spirits in the house, the bell would ring, and it was for protection. It was to protect them. But that was the purpose of the Christmas tree, the Yule tree, it was called. But yeah, the tree, the Yule tree was decorated, like our Christmas tree is. It would have bells on it, so that if there was any evil spirits around, they could hear it because the bell would ring.
All right. That sounds very nice.
Yeah. So what else do you have on Yule?
Well, you actually caught a good place to talk about that, because I'm able to change lanes right now and talk about a couple of ways Yule is celebrated in a couple of other European countries, like Finland. In Finland, for example, children are visited by Joulupukki, who is very much like our Santa Claus. And he doesn't sneak in through the chimney like he does during the night, but he knocks on the front door during Juulato, which is the finished Yule. And when he comes in, his first words usually are there any good or well-behaving children here? Mm-hmm. And then presents are given to the children, and they're opened immediately. it seems that doesn't change very often, huh?
Right.
Kids still do that today.
Yeah.
And Yorupuki wears warm red clothes and carries a wooden walking stick. He visits people's homes and rides a sleigh pulled by a number of reindeer, very much like our Santa Claus. He is married to Yule Mori, or Mother Yule. And in Finland, they have special Yule dishes including ham, various root or vegetable casseroles, beetroot salad, gingerbread, and star-shaped plum-filled pastries. Sounds good, doesn't it?
Sure does. We get the ham, the Christmas ham from.
Yep, that's Yule is the reason we get ham.
Yeah.
And apparently gingerbread from Finland.
Yeah. Okay, so what else?
Now we're going to shift from Finland and go to Norwegia. Norwegian Yule is spelled very interesting, J-U-L.
Mm-hmm.
And the Yule event for Norwegian is on Julafton, or December 24th, the evening of the main feast, where gifts are exchanged and the food is served. Almost all Norwegian breweries produce traditional beer called Juleøl and a special soda called Julebørs. Yule dishes are also served in Julebord, where people from work gather around early December to feast and drink alcoholic beverages. There are some foods like, there are seven special types of cookies, all called Julekaker, which are traditionally baked by the mother of the house. There's also the Julebuk tradition, which is common for children to pay visits to neighbors, where they are given candy, nuts, and clementines. Apparently, they like Halloween the same day as Yule.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, the children even dressed up to go out every day between Julafton and New Year's Eve. And adults also did that too, later in the evening, in the drama book. And they pay visits to neighbors in much the same way as children, but the adults are given drinks instead of candy. Shifting lanes again to Denmark. Yule is also celebrated there on December 21st, but it's called Julaftensdag. I hope I pronounced that right. For those of you in Denmark listening to this, please do not shoot me if I mispronounce it. They make an elaborate dinner eaten with the family consisting of either roast pork, roast duck, or roast goose with potatoes, red cabbage, and gravy. Oh, that sounds nice. And they'd have rice pudding for dessert, which is traditionally with an almond hidden inside. The lucky finder of this almond is entitled to a small gift. After the meal is complete, the family gather around the Yule tree and sing Christmas carols, or Yule carols. And when they finish their singing, the children often hand out the presents. They are opened, and this is followed by candy, chips, and different kinds of nuts, clementines, and also mulled and spiced wine with almonds and raisins called glögg, which is served in hot, small cups. And at the moment, that is all I can see on my papers about Yule.
Okay, so what about Hanukkah? What have you got on Hanukkah?
Hanukkah, when I was doing my research, I was very sad to see that there was not a whole lot of information about Hanukkah, which was a real surprise to me, because it's been fighting with Christmas for 2,000 years. And it's all, everywhere I go, it's the same small amount of information, just repeated over and over and over again.
Huh.
I did find some good information about it. Hanukkah is also known as the Festival of Lights. It is a Jewish holiday which lasts 8 days, commemorating the rededication of the Second Temple in Jerusalem at the time of the Maccabean Revolt of the 2nd century B.C. Hanukkah is observed for 8 nights, starting on the 25th day of Kislev, according to the Hebrew calendar, and may occur from late November to late December on the Gregorian calendar. Every year, the date changes according to the calendars, And this year, I didn't write this down, but I think the first day of Hanukkah was 2 or 3 days ago, I believe. I'm not sure.
I didn't know it changed every year.
Changes every year.
Wow.
Some days it's late November, some years it's early December, then late December.
Wow.
It all changes every single year.
I sure didn't know that.
It's a good thing to know. The festival is observed by the kindling of lights of a special candelabra called the menorah. Everyone knows the menorah. There will be a certain amount of candles, and one on each night of the holiday. 8 candles, and there was also an extra light called the shamash, which is placed in the center and raised a little bit higher than the others. The shamash is lit and put out every single night, and you use the shamash you light the shamash at the beginning, and then use it to light one candle and put it out. And then you keep doing that every night until all candles are lit.
Know that.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
And the story of the Hanukkah, where it originated from, began 2,200 years ago when the Greek Syrian ruler Antiochus IV tried to force Greek culture upon the peoples in the Jewish territory. Jews in Judea, which is now called Israel, were forbidden their most important religious practices as well as the study of the Torah. Although vastly outnumbered, religious Jews in the region took arms to protect their community and their religion. Led by Matthias the Hasmonean, I hope I'm announcing this correctly, and later his son, Judah the Maccabi, the rebel armies became known as the Maccabees. After the 3 years of fighting in the year...
What were they fighting for?
They were fighting to keep their religion up. The Greek ruler Antiochus IV was trying to force his religion on the people around him, and so the Jews in Israel took arms to fight back.
Do you know what his religion was?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I'm guessing since it was BC that it was the main Greek mythologies. I'm guessing.
Okay.
It's just a guess. Don't quote me on that.
Okay, go ahead.
And the 3 years of fighting, it lasted to 165 BC, and the Maccabees victoriously reclaimed the temple on Jerusalem's Mount Moriah. And then they prepared the temple for rededication. In Hebrew, Hanukkah means dedication, which that's pretty handy to know.
Wow.
And in the temple, they found only enough purified oil to kindle the temple lights for a single day. But a miracle happened when the oil burned throughout 8 consecutive days.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The lighting of the menorah, known in Hebrew as the Hanukkah, is the most important Hanukkah tradition. A menorah is a candle stand with 9 branches, 8 candles, 4 on each side, and 1 raised up in the center for the shamash, which I talked about a couple minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
The primary ritual, according to Jewish law and custom, is to light a single light for each of the 8 nights. The reason for the Hanukkah lights is not for the lighting of the house within, but rather the illumination of the house without. And they put the menorahs in the front windows so that passersby could see it and be reminded of the holiday's miracle.
Ah, okay.
And I'm getting tired of reading all these foods because I'm hungry and my stomach's rumbling just looking at this stuff. But they eat latkes, which are potato pancakes, which were the foods they would eat back in 165 BC when they were burning that oil.
Wow.
And they eat a lot of foods that were either fried, baked, or boiled in oil, preferably olive oil.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's interesting.
Mhm. And at the moment, that is all I have about Hanukkah.
Okay, so what's the next holiday we have?
Well, the next holiday is Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa, I was disappointed to figure this out, is not an actual holiday from Africa. It was made in 1966 by a chairman of Black Studies at California State University in Long Beach. Kwanzaa is a week-long Pan-African festival celebrated primarily in the United States, honoring African-American heritage. It is observed from December 26th to January 1st of each year. Kwanzaa consists of 7 days of celebration, featuring activities such as candle lighting and pouring of libations, and culminating in a feast and gift-giving. It was first celebrated on December 26, 1996 to January 1st, 1967, timed to coincide with Christmas so that it would be remembered. According to African-American leader Al Sharpton, Kwanzaa was created to give the blacks a holiday that they could have for themselves.
It was a time period when we were going through the racial segregation and all that, and they were trying to overcome all of that, and they really needed something for themselves. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Kwanzaa was created by Dr. Maulana Karenga, who was a professor and chairman of Black Studies at California State University in Long Beach. I said this already. After the Watts riot in Los Angeles, California, Dr. Karenga searched for ways to bring African Americans together as a community. He founded a cultural organization and started to research the African first fruit harvest celebrations. Karenga combined aspects from several different harvest celebrations, such as those of the Ashanti and those of the Zulu, to form the basis of Kwanzaa. So Kwanzaa is partially African, partially not, because it's created from different tribes of African celebrations.
Wow.
And the name Kwanzaa is derived from the phrase Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits in Swahili. Each family celebrates Kwanzaa in their own way, but celebrations often include songs and dances, African drums, storytelling, poetry reading, and a large traditional meal. On each of the 7 nights, the family gathers and the child lights one of the candles on the kinara, which is the candle holder, which is like the Jewish menorah, except it has 2 less candle holders. And each of the 7 candles represents one of the 7 principles called the Nguzo Saba, which translates into the 7 principles of Swahili. And they are values of African culture which contribute to building and reinforcing community along the African Americans. The 7 principles of Swahili are unity, which is in African umoja, self-determination, which is kujichakulia, collective work and responsibility, ujima, cooperative economics, ujama, purpose, nia, creativity, kurumba, and faith, imani. So you're getting to learn a bit of African as well as the history of Kwanzaa here.
And those are really good attributes for everybody to learn.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And there are also 7 symbols that are an important part of Kwanzaa. The mazeo, the makeka, the vibunzi, the mishuma saba, the kinara, the kikombe, cha umoja, and the zawadi. Now, those of you outside, don't be confused. I am going to tell you what each one of these words means.
Thank you.
Mazeo are fruits, nuts, and vegetables, and that symbolizes the work and the basis of the holiday, which is gathering the family.
Mm.
The makeka means placemat, and it symbolizes the historical and tradition foundation for us to stand on and build our lives, because today stands on our yesterdays.
True.
The vibunzi is an ear of corn, and it represents fertility and symbolizes that through the reproduction of children, the future hopes of the family are brought to life. The Mishumba Saba are the 7 candles, lit one each night, that represents one of the 7 principles of Swahili. And the Kinara is the candle holder. It is the center of the Kwanzaa setting and represents the original stalk from which we came, our ancestry. The Kinara can be shaped in straight lines, semicircles, or in spirals, as long as the 7 candles are separate and distinct, much like a regular candelabra.
Mm-hmm.
Candelabra, sorry.
Right.
The Kikombe cha Umoja is a special cup called the Unity Cup, and it's used to perform the libation ritual during the Karamu feast on the 6th day of Kwanzaa. During the Karamu feast, the Kikombe cha Umoja is passed from family members to guests all around the table, and they drink it to promote unity. And the Zawadi, finally, are gifts that are given on the 7th day that are used to encourage growth, self-determination, achievement, and success.
That sounds like a really good holiday.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to improve, and that's always good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can all learn some things from the Kwanzaa holiday. It'd be really neat.
Yeah. Okay, so is that all you've got on Kwanzaa?
That is all I have on Kwanzaa.
Okay. Next we've got Christmas, right?
Yep, I saved the most familiar holiday for last.
Okay.
Centuries before the arrival of the man called Jesus, early Europeans celebrated light and birth in the darkest days of winter. Many people rejoiced during the winter solstice, and when the worst of the winter was behind them and they could look forward to longer days and extended hours of sunlight. The end of December was a perfect time for celebration in most areas of Europe. At that time of year, most cattle were slaughtered so they would not have to be fed during the winter, as we discussed with the winter solstice and Yule.
Right.
And for many, it was the only time of year when they had a supply of fresh meat, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And also the wine and beer being made.
Yeah.
Again, congratulations to all you people who drink. I'm sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
And around the time of the winter solstice, Romans observed Yule, which is a feast honoring the children of Rome. And it's rare that you see something honoring children.
Right.
And in addition, the members of the upper classes often celebrate the birthdays of Mithra, the god of the unconquerable sun, on December 25th, which is where we got our date for Christmas. And in the early years of Christianity, Easter was the main holiday. The birth of Jesus was not celebrated because the Bible didn't tell when he was born, and it only gave very vague clues.
That's true. That is true.
And it wasn't until the 4th century that the church decided to institute the birth of Jesus as a holiday. And the Puritans later pointed out, much later on in the timeline, that they pointed out that the Bible didn't mention his birth to deny the legitimacy of celebrating Christmas.
Didn't they make it illegal to celebrate Christmas?
Yes, they did. In the early 17th century, a wave of religious reform changed the way Christmas was celebrated in Europe. And it all started when a man called Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces took over England in 1645. And they vowed to rid England of decadence, and as a part of their effort, canceled Christmas. Canceled Christmas.
Didn't know that.
Well, it didn't last long, because by popular demand, Charles II was restored to the throne, and with him came the return of Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, happy days. But the Puritans didn't stop there. The Pilgrims continued with that. The Pilgrims, which were English separatists, came to America in 1620 and were even more orthodox in their Puritan beliefs than Cromwell. And as a result, Christmas was not a holiday in early America. From 1659 to 1681, the celebration of Christmas was outlawed in Boston. Anyone exhibiting the Christian spirit was fined 5 shillings.
Wow.
But after the American Revolution, English customs fell out of favor, including Christmas. In fact, Congress was in session on December 27th, 1789, the first Christmas under America's new Constitution.
Really?
And Christmas wasn't declared a federal holiday until June in 1870.
Wow.
It continued on. It wasn't even until the 19th century that the Americans embraced Christmas. Americans reinvented Christmas and changed it from a raucous carnival holiday to a family-centered day of peace, of nostalgia. And the family was becoming less disciplined and more sensitive to the emotional needs of children during the early 1800s. And the Christmas season provided families with a day when they could lavish attention and gifts on their children without appearing to spoil them.
Right, because that was a big deal back then.
Yes, it was. And when I read that, I thought, wow, it's an excuse.
It's a good excuse.
It does make a good excuse, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to skip back. I'm going to skip back along the timeline to talk more about the forming of Christmas.
Okay.
Some of the evidence in the Bible suggests that his birth may have been in the spring. One of the bits of evidence was the shepherds herding. They wouldn't be herding in the middle of winter.
Right.
That's when they killed their cattle and sheep and all that for food and warmth.
Right.
But despite all that, Pope Julius I chose December 25th. And it was commonly believed that the Church chose this date in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of the pagan Saturnalia festival, which was much like Christmas, but there was a lot of things missing, and it wasn't garbed in the robes of Christianity.
Right.
First called the Feast of the Nativity, the custom spread to Egypt in 432 and to England by the end of the 6th century. By the end of the 8th century, the celebration of Christmas had spread all the way to Scandinavia. And today, still in the Greek and Roman Orthodox churches, Christmas is actually celebrated 13 days after the 25th, which is also referred to as the Epiphany or Three Kings Day. And the reason they chose the 13 days afterwards was because that was the day that it was believed that the three wise men finally found Jesus in the manger. Yeah, sorry about that. And by holding Christmas at the same time as traditional winter solstice festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas would be popularly embraced, but gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. By the Middle Ages, Christianity had, for the most part, replaced pagan religions. Darn. On Christmas, believers attended church and then celebrated raucously in a drunken carnival-like atmosphere. Can you guess what that sounds like, Mother?
What?
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras, yeah.
Drunk carnival-like atmosphere during the Middle Ages, that was Mardi Gras.
True.
And each year, a beggar or a student would be crowned the Lord of Misrule, and eager celebrants played the part of his subjects. Now that sounds like a lot of fun.
It sounds just like Mardi Gras.
Yeah, it does sound like just like Mardi Gras, every single detail.
Wow.
The poor would go to the houses of the rich and demand their best food and drink. And if owners failed to comply, their visitors would most likely terrorize them with mischief. If that happened today, there would be a bunch of mansions that were TP'd, eggs thrown at the door.
Really? Yeah. Well, so, Chris, we've just got a few minutes left. Is there anything you want to close with?
Yes, I would like to close with some information about a best-selling author named Washington Irving, who in 1819 wrote The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, which was a series of stories about the celebration of Christmas in an English manor house. The sketches feature a squire who invited the peasants into his home for the holiday. In contrast to the problems faced in America's society, the two groups mingled effortlessly. In Irving's mind, Christmas should be a peaceful, warm-hearted holiday bringing groups together across lines of wealth and social status. As Americans began to embrace Christmas as a perfect family holiday, old customs started to become unearthed, such as Christmas trees and all that stuff. And people looked forward to the recent immigrants and Catholic and Episcopalian churches to see how the day should be celebrated. And in the next 100 years, Americans built a Christmas tradition all their own that included pieces of many other customs, including decorating trees, sending holiday cards, and gift-giving.
Well, that's interesting. So we've got about 1 minute. What's your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday would have to be Christmas.
Yeah, but which one? Real quick. Well, mine is this year because we got to go to California.
Oh yeah, this will probably be my favorite Christmas.
Yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say the same thing because the Christmases in the past weren't all that glamorous. They were fun, but not really glamorous as this year was.
Right, that's true. You can reach me for a reading or a healing session at www.askclaudia.com or visit my online store at www.lightworkersupplies.com. I want to thank everyone for listening. Happy Solstice, Yule, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful week. Take time to heal. May your angels bless you with light, love, and peace. Namaste.